Happy Towrah. I say that to all of those who celebrate Yahweh's glorious name and the achievements of his magnificent son, Dode. It is Towrah today. This is the time that we both signal a warning to those who are overtly political or religious that you are walking away from God and irritating him. And we also convey the truth about who God actually is, Yahuwah, what he had to say in his Torah, prophets, and Psalms, and what he achieved through his Messiah, his chosen son, and our King, the chosen one, our Savior, Dode. In a previous program, we had considered, I think for the third time, the 20th Mizmor or Psalm, because it is so essential in helping us understand what Dode presents in our lives. In it, God was unequivocal. He said that Dode, David, is the Messiah. He said that Dode, David, is our Savior, and said both things repeatedly. He said that the covenant was created because of and by way of Dode. Now, what this means is that Dode is the one who in 33 CE, year 4000 Yah, fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, not Jesus. It means that everything that had been written belatedly, beginning in 52 CE and through 95 CE, that became the so-called Christian New Testament, was untrue. Nothing but a product of identity theft. The truth is that Jesus never existed, and that our Savior, the Messiah, the very Son of God, who fulfilled Pesach, Passover, matzah, unyeasted bread, to remove our guilt, and took our guilt and deposited in Sheol on that day so that we could be part of God's family by way of Bikurim, is David. I think that is the single greatest discovery pursuant to God in human history. And you are now the beneficiary of it. So we're going to continue on this theme. There are some additional Mizmor or Psalms which say very similar things, and let's turn to them now. If you have joined me on this program, you know that we have just survived quite a deluge, and we enjoy living here outdoors in the Virgin Islands in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, but we get pop-up showers, and they can bring down quite the amount of rain in a short period of time. So while I haven't dried off much, I am drip dry. The equipment has been dried up, and so I think our cameras and teleprompter and computers and lights and microphone and all of this should be working now, and we'll proceed with what we attempted to do just a matter of moments ago. This is Psalm 78. We're going to speak about statements 68 through 72. It is speaking of Yahweh. So he chose accordingly. Well, I guess that's... Oh, there we go. We have a view back. Well, I just had the teleprompter go completely black, along with the laptop, the computer that is driving it, but maybe that was just a glitch from the rain. It's back up again. So the psalm reads, so he chose accordingly the people of Yehudah. This beginning, it might sound, fairly simple, but it isn't. This means that God didn't choose a church, that he did not choose Romans and Greeks, that he did not choose Roman Catholicism, that he did not choose Christianity. It means that he doesn't believe the Christian rubbish that Jews killed him. No. So Yahweh chose accordingly the people of Yehudah. Now you might say, oh, well, that was the past, all that was changed with the New Testament. There is no New Testament. God's very clear. There's only one covenant, period. He says that any promise he made endures forever. And if you were to claim anybody else as the Messiah, Savior, or Son of God, you would be calling him a liar. And In Hebrew, when you have a verb like bakar is this verb, it speaks of making a choice, expressing a preference. All Hebrew verbs are written so that they endure throughout time. There is no past, present, and future tense. You cannot ascribe a thought just to the past or just to the future. And it was written in the call imperfect. For those who know a little bit about Hebrew grammar, the imperfect means that this statement is forever accurate. It means that it is what it was, and it will be. So God chose on an ongoing basis throughout time without end. That is what the imperfect conjugation conveys. The call stem simply means interpret this literally. There's no nuance here that needs to be somehow deduced from this statement. It is a literal statement. God chose accordingly. The people, the family, the tribe, the nation, if you will, of Yahudah. Yahudah is the word that has been rendered Jew. It is written Yod, He, Wah, Daleth, He. It is actually a compound of two names. Yah and Ud would be Yahweh and Dod. It means Yahweh's beloved. So he chose, accordingly, the people of Yahudah. Of course, that means that he did not choose the people of any other group or religion, did he? Along with Mount Zion. So he's not just telling you about the people. He's not just telling you about the community, this family. He's also now telling you about the place. And that place isn't Washington. It's not New York. It's not Scottsdale, Arizona. It's not the Vatican. It's not Mecca. It's Mount Zion. Mount Zion is that ridge line that goes from the house of Dod in the city of Dod at the bottom of it, all the way in the southern end, all the way to the Temple Mount on the top, on the summit of that mountain. And Zion means signs posted along the way. It explains this process of Dod as Yahweh's firstborn son, establishing the covenant family as we move to the house for Yahweh's name, called a temple. So he chose accordingly the people of Yahudah along with Mount Zion, these signs posted along the way, which for the benefit of the relationship, this is from Asher, which to reveal the correct path to get the most out of life, he loves Ahab. He adores and desires, choosing to enjoy a close, personal, and affectionate association. Because of the way that Hebrew is written, love, God's love for his people continues. So this idea that is so essential to Christianity, that the Christian church and Gentiles were able to rob all of the promises God made to his people, Yahud, and his set-apart place, Yahudah, on Mount Moriah, Zion, and gave them to somebody else is an absolute lie. The basis of Christianity, which is to rob Jews of their inheritance, to rob them of their Messiah, their God, their inheritance, is an outright lie. God continues to love Yahud. He has chosen Yahud. Those are his people. This is his place. If you don't like it, tough, then my suggestion would be to create an entirely different religion based upon the man-God nature of Dionysus. You can keep your Dionysian God, and you can keep Jesus Christ as a name. Bears no association of any kind with Yahweh. Just go away. Don't pretend that there's some mention of your Jesus Christ in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, because there is none. There's not a single prophecy that points to him, not one. Every prophecy that speaks of a coming Messiah, every prophecy that speaks of the coming King, every prophecy that speaks of our salvation are always named on behalf of Dod. No exceptions. So just go away. Have your little pretend religion out there with the rest of the Greek pagans and the Babylonians and the Romans. And who cares? Just don't claim anything associated with the God of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. Now, favoring the house of Dod, Yahweh prefers Yehudah. He loves Zion and the Mashiach's people and place, which is the very city that Dod himself established. It's called the city of Dod. Now, as such, there is no home for the notion of replacement theology, which is the basis of the Christian New Testament and the religion. There's no place for a Vatican in Rome. There is no love for the Haredi sect which emerged from the Ukraine either. It continues. He will reestablish and build, Bana. He will restore the family name while simultaneously lifting up his set-apart place, akin to the land which he created for her long ago, for an enduring future purpose. Mizmor 78:69. God is doubling and tripling down. Yahud are his people, not Goyim, not a church, not Greeks, not Romans. Yahud are his people. The ridge line that goes from the city of Dod up to the Temple Mount is where he has presented the signs that show the way. It is this place and these people that he establishes enduring love. And that it is here that he is going to reestablish and build while lifting up this special, set-apart place, this home for his name, akin to the land which he created for her long ago, for an enduring future purpose. If you think that by doing what the United Nations is resuming in their discussions now about establishing a Fakistinian state carved out of the heart of Israel, you have become an enemy of God. If that is your intent, to establish a state of Islamic terror in the land that Yahweh gave to his people, Yahud, then you have become an enemy of God. And for such people, there is a place. It's called Sheol, known commonly as hell. The land of Yahudah, the people known as Yahud, were chosen by Yahweh. He loves them, and he has committed himself to reestablishing them in the very place that he created for them as for an enduring future purpose. So everything which is important to God happens to be set apart, thus separated and distinct from the common and ordinary things of humankind, distinct from man's ways, man's society, culture, civilizations, religion, and politics. And anything, I should say, there's nothing more common among men than religion. Second only to that would be government, and politics, and militarism, all of which are typically intertwined. God is distinct and separated from these things. Fact is, he hates religion and politics. Yeah, it's funny that he had 100 million people tuning in to the memorial service for Charlie Kirk, who was a pimp for religion and politics. It was his gig. He promoted the politics of the worst man probably in the world today, maybe the worst man in the history of the world, and Donald Trump, in terms of his grotesque immorality and his destructive nature, and the myth of Jesus Christ. And he claimed to have done so with God. He's up there with God now. That's what they would tell you. In fact, they would even tell you that the man that is their myth, Jesus, that that they claim Jews killed, doesn't make him very much of a god, does it? And not very big god, because he was able to fit into the body of a man. But nonetheless, they claim he's up there with him when God is overtly anti-religious and political. And anybody who was speaking in an anti-Semitic way is no friend of Yahowah. So, this is not to say that there is anything wrong with the physical realm, the earth, or the universe beyond. Yahowah designated both for our benefit and to serve his purpose. There are specific places, however, that in contrast to others, reveal his intent, serving as enduring symbols and metaphors. And these include Eden, Yisrael, Yehudah, Jerusalem, and Moriah. These are all literal places and living metaphors, all set apart and important to God. Now, from the perspective of loving Yehudah and Zion, and of restoring that which is set apart, distinct from the promotion of religion and politics, we find that Yahowah is once again affirming that he has chosen Dowd to shepherd his sheep. According to God, Dowd is the good shepherd. It reads, he chose, Bashar again, he selected and prefers, and this was written in the call imperative, which means without remission, forevermore. Therein, his associate, his co-worker, Dowd. You see, God's co-workers never once called Christ, never once called Jesus, never once. There's no mention of a pope being God's co-worker. There's no mention of a pastor being called God's co-worker. God's co-worker is Dowd. Now, you may be more familiar with the name David, but there is no V in ancient Hebrew. The name was written Daleth, Wah, Daleth. And the Daleth makes the same sound as it does in the English language as a D. And the Wah makes the same sound as the vowel consonant in English as well. Like if you consider the word own or owl, the W is almost always pronounced as the O sound in English, and it is almost always pronounced with the O sound in Hebrew. Take, for example, Torah. Where do you think Torah receives the O sound? If you actually look at the correct spelling of Torah, it includes the Wah. How about Shalom as another example? Shalom is a perfect example of the fact that the O sound is derived from the Hebrew Wah. And so this is one of those words, beloved, that reads from right to left as it does from left to right, a complete balance, with it serving to convey the meaning of the name, and the meaning of the name Dowd is love, beloved. Now, also you should know that the id ending in the more common parlance is only because there are about a quarter of the references to Dowd that have it Doed, and in those cases it's all written by scribes that composed their testimony 500 years after Dowd. Anything written in Dowd's own hand, like this psalm, this Mizmor, is written Dowd. Anything written by Yashayah, for example, that was within 300 years of Dowd's life, is written Dowd. Anything written by Shamuel, who was a contemporary of Dowd, is written Dowd. So you'd think that Shamuel is that great prophet and judge, and Dowd himself as the prophet and king and Messiah and Son of God and chosen one, Great prophet Yahshua, where you have the great Isaiah scroll, you'd think that they know how to write his name, don't you? And it's Dod. And so it says here that God chose his associate, Dod. Where would you go from there? I mean, how do you get from God saying this to this myth of Jesus being a God man? I mean, it's just ludicrous. Dod is the one that God chose. He is his co-worker. He is the one that God accomplishes things through. He is also the one who established Zion. He's the most Yahud of all men, as the preeminent individual from the tribe of Yehudah. It all fits together perfectly if you believe God. But to be religious and to pretend that an unknown Messiah is coming in Judaism, or to pretend that there is this mythical fairy tale named Jesus, who was somehow the Son of God and also God, which is just even more ludicrous, and that he was a Christ, as if they're thinking that Christ is the same as Messiah. It's stupid. I mean, as I say, if you want to believe that rot, go off and play on your own. Don't do what Paul did and rip off prophecies pertaining to Dod and pertaining to Yisrael and pretend that they apply to your myth. They don't. God's beloved son, his associate, is the man who founded the city of Dod, the most Yehud of all Yehud. And just so that you're not confused, it says he took him from the paddocks for sheep. Yeah. Where did Yahweh choose Dod? He was the one of Yeshay's sons who wasn't around Yeshay, who wasn't around mom, who was out on his own. Remember the first condition of the covenant? Walk away from Babel, walk away from this commingling of religion and politics. Walk away from your family, your father's house. He had done so, hadn't he? He was the one who had done so. He had separated himself from all things common and religious. He was down there in Bethlehem. He was tending sheep, which from God's point of view is the perfect training for his wayward flock. So he took him from the paddocks for sheep, from following after and nursing ewes. God's got a sense of humor, doesn't he? The man who would save us, the man who fulfilled Pesach Matzah B'Kudim, the man who was the king of Israel and will return as king of the universe. He found him as a 9 or 8-year-old boy out tending young sheep. And it says he brought him out for a time and will return him, engaging with him. And this is Bo Hula. He will have him come such that he arrives, approaching to be included and in association as a shepherd among Jacob, among the man whose name means I grabbed the heel, commonly transliterated Jacob, but it's from a yod, which gives it a first person perspective as I, a kab, which means to receive the reward or suffer the consequence of circumventing or overreaching, digging in one's heels. So among Jacob. Now remember, God just said that this choice and this love is forever with Yahud. Now he is re-emphasizing this because Jacob is synonymous with Yisrael. So it's not just for the tribe of Yahud, it is for all Yisrael, his people. And just to double down in case you're not very bright, not paying attention, with Yisrael. Yisrael is those who engage and endure with God. Yish, Sarah, El, those who are liberated and empowered by the Almighty as his inheritance. So Dod, is inheriting Yisrael. And that means that when Dod returns as king, Yisrael is his. Not only the land of Yisrael, because he's going to inherit the entire universe, but the surviving mortal remnant of Yisrael. And in this case, Yisrael defines those who engage and endure with God, and Jacob is synonymous with the covenant that God created with his people. That is his inheritance. 78, 71. Now, the words are abundantly clear. Everything that God has to say about what he's going to achieve with his people, Yahud, them in the plural, Yisraelites, through Dod David, in Yahudah, is always clear that Dod is the co-worker that he dearly loves, that he has chosen to accomplish this, and that Dod is the ultimate shepherd for his people. And that God is equating Yisrael to his flock, which Dod is inheriting. There is no room here for the religious corruptions of Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. And it's matter of fact. So the words are abundantly clear. The shepherd, Yahweh chose to guide those who were descendants of Jacob, is Dod. Israel is his inheritance. He's king. And now for Dod's sake, one can only hope that they are vastly improved over the variant that Moshe endured during the Exodus, because that variant Moshe quit on. Moshe said, God, I want you to kill me because these people are impossible. They revolted against Moshe multiple times, tried to kill him. God couldn't even talk to them. God tried. They told God to shut up and go away. So the only reason that it's going to be an improved lot is twofold. One is that you're not going to make it into this time when Dod returns and be covenant without having benefited from Dod's sacrifice of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, and therefore you're going to be grateful to Dod for having done so, or you wouldn't be there. And second, those who are entering the millennial kingdom during the Shabat of Sukkah will all have watched Dod come back as brilliant as the sun with his father Yahweh, and they will be purged of all religiosity and politics by the sacrifice of the Adam Parah. So they will be exceedingly grateful. As a matter of fact, in Zechariah 12, it says specifically that when Yahweh returns with the one associated with the one whom they had pierced, they're going to mourn, literally cry for the firstborn because of how they have treated Dod up to this point. So in this regard, we want to keep three things in mind. First, God's view is that the experience, the aptitude, the attitude of a shepherd is the ideal profession to prepare a man to lead the chosen people. My wife was a shepherd. Dod was a shepherd. Moshe was a shepherd. And so God views that as an ideal profession if you're going to herd the sheep. This may be why he chose to write a God and, or I should say, should write the title God as a Ain, an Aleph, I should say, an Aleph followed by a Lamed, and the title Father as an Aleph followed by a Be'eth. And let's just talk about that for a moment in the original pictographs that formed Hebrew. The Aleph is a ram, the leader of the flock. And it appears both in the title El God and in the title Ab Father. The second letter in God, El, is a shepherd's staff, the Lamed. And the second letter in the home for that ram in Father is a Be'eth home. Be'eth is also the root of Bereth, which is covenant family. So the two titles that Yahweh prefers the most both speak of being the lead ram in the flock. Using a graphic depiction of a ram's head with the aleph and that of either the shepherd's staff or the home for the sheep. Now, second, Dode was the first and foremost shepherd in God's family. There's no one who was more famous as a shepherd. The 23rd Mizmor or Psalm is a beautiful ode to a shepherd speaking of his father as the ultimate shepherd. They shared that in common. They viewed the wayward children of Israel as a flock, as sheep. And that was what Dode was doing when he was called by Yahweh to protect his people. Thereafter, he became Messiah and King. Now, third, Dode was also the Lamb of God, the ultimate sheep within the flock, And more specifically, he was the Passover lamb. In this role, he served to fulfill the promise that Yahweh had made to Abraham and his son Yishak. Remember when Abraham and Yishak climbed Mount Moriah and they had the wood, they had the fire, and Yishak, his beloved son, kept on saying, "Father, I see the wood, I see the fire. Where's the lamb for the sacrifice?" And Abraham, which means merciful father, Yishak means laughter, play, having fun together, kept on saying Yahweh was going to provide. And when they finally got to the place of the time and of the sacrifice, Yahweh called out to Abraham and said, "Abraham, merciful father, do not take the life of your son, your only son, whom you love." Only son, Yahweh refers to Dode as his Bakor, his firstborn son. And Dode's name means love. And so Yahweh said, "Don't take the life of your son," because he was going to offer his son as the sacrifice. And you might say, "Oh, come on, God's not going to offer his son Dode as the sacrifice." Yes, Dode volunteered, and God agreed with him. Dode figured out by reading the story, just as I've shared with you that story. Dode figured out that it would be his son, and Dode knew that he was the son of God because God told him that 3 times. And called himself his son and called him, referred to Dode saying, "I am his father," 3 times. He didn't do that for anyone else. And so Dode knew his status with God as father, son. And so when he read that, he immediately recognized it is for him to fulfill. And you might say, wait a minute, he was living, at a 970-ish, 980 BCE. That would have taken place in 33 CE. That was the second of third lives. Dode will have 3 lives. He represents the tree of lives, and it isn't the tree of life. It is the tree of lives, Chaim. And he represents that. He's already lived 2, will live a 3rd. It's not that big a deal. Look at Elijah. He will also live 3 lives. Everyone who is part of the covenant family is going to live 2 lives. There are 3 men who have the distinction of living 3 because in one of the 3, they make a sacrifice on behalf of the family. And so it says here, and so he will continually lead them, nurturing and protecting the flock. Ra'ah him. He will always and genuinely be their shepherd, guiding and protecting them. Now, first, as I've shared, verbs in Hebrew are not stuck in time. They are true throughout time. And if a verb is written in the imperfect conjugation, it means that the implications are ongoing without remission. So it says that Dode, who has been named as the shepherd, will continually lead and nurture and protect the flock forevermore. With integrity, because of his astute ability to exercise good judgment. Katom lebaba hu. And some you say, well, that doesn't say that. It says something else because it's lebaba, and that means heart. Technically, leb is heart in Hebrew, but when you say heart in English, there's this connotation of emotions, of the seat of emotions. It's not what it means in Hebrew. The liver and the kidneys were, particularly the kidneys, were the seat of emotion in Hebrew. The seat of judgment, of making sound and wise judgment, tom labab, happened to be the heart. So he was a man of integrity. Is a man of integrity. He is astute. He has the ability to exercise good judgment. And therefore, that is how he will lead them, with his capable hand, with insight and understanding. Tabuna, Kaf, Hu. Kaf is the palm of an open hand. Hu in Hebrew means his. So it is his open hand that grasp hold of, whether it's the shepherd's staff, or it was the part that was pierced as he suffered crucifixion to fulfill Passover, or that recognition that Dowd is, as Yahweh's co-worker, the very right hand of God. So it is with his capable hand, with insight and understanding, intelligently showing the tremendous mental attitude and aptitude, tabuna, with a wise and capable hand, skillfully applying logic and reasoning while offering instruction. It is derived from ben, to be perceptive and discerning, to comprehend by making reasonable and rational connections between things, by being intelligent, discriminating between right and wrong, good and bad. Ms. Moore lyrics to sing. Psalm 78, 72. That's a wonderful metaphor, is it not? Revealing why Yahweh chose Dowd to serve his people. Shepherds are nurturing, they are protective leaders, and this one had integrity. He had good judgment. But beyond this, Dowd is presented and projected here as the Kaf, the open hand of Yah. And the principal attribute he brought to this relationship, making him the ideal partner in the family enterprise, is intelligence. He was a man with robust mental acuity. You know, Dowd is known for his love, but he should be trusted for his logic. Now, while I have seen the Yod, hand of Yahweh, as the father of the covenant, reaching down and out to his children, ever ready to lift us up so that we could walk together through the universe, there may be something more to this. We have just been shown that Dowd is the capable and insightful hand of God. And this wasn't the first, nor will it be the last time that Yahweh will use this profoundly important metaphor, and he will shade it in many different ways in conjunction with his chosen and beloved son, interchangeably using yamin, right hand, and kaf, open palm of a hand, with regard to Dowd. So indeed, evidently and rationally, it is unwise to ignore any of these declarations from the Word of God. Yahweh has consistently revealed that the third coming of Dowd is as the Son of God, as Yahweh's Messiah, as King, as God's right hand and the shepherd of his people. And yet, this is so debilitating for Christians, so catastrophic for Muslims, and career-ending for rabbis. I think we should remain on this trail a while longer. It should be music to the ears of Yisrael and Yehudah, for whom these lyrics were actually scored. Now, this next statement is from another of Yahweh's prophets. It even speaks of Yahusha and of his integrity. his mentions even his trashy religious associates, and then concludes using a metaphor of shemak, branch, a concept so important that I devoted an entire chapter of the observation series to it. Dode is the branch, the shemak of the tree of lives. So this reads, and it is from the magnificent future portrait established by Zechariah, who was likely the second to the last prophet. He could have been the third, depending on whether Yoel came right before him or right after him, with Malachi being the last. Please listen, Yahusha, as the high priest, you and your loud-mouthed associates, including those who have inhabited this office before you, are individually symbolic, because indeed, behold, myself, I will return and bring my co-worker, the branch. Zechariah, remember Yahweh, Zechariah 3:8. You know, later in Zechariah, when he talks about coming with his beloved son, whom we have pierced, or the person who was pierced, who wrote 2 psalms about it in first person, is David. He explained the piercing nature of Roman crucifixion 1,000 years before he endured it. And you find Yahweh using the shemak symbolism associated, and title really is associated with Dode, probably more than any other title for Dode. And it's because Dode represents the tree of lives. And so God is saying here, he's going to return and bring his co-worker. We've already been told his co-worker is David, and he's going to bring his co-worker, who is the branch, and the only person that is called the branch, the mighty shemak of the tree of lives, throughout the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, is David. So listen, that means that Yosha ain't the guy. And this also means that since Yosha at that moment, and this is the Yosha is representing the clown that was during that period after the Babylonian captivity, where they were able to go back to the land, and the Babylonian king was funding some of this. You had Cyrus offering to do this, and the cast of characters were really under Cyrus. And during that time, there's really nothing that Yosha does or says that is of any value. And he is now being associated here with Ra. And Ra is loudmouth associates, worrisome and wicked companions, undesirable countrymen, people of ill repute. Now, if Yosha is being replaced, he's not qualified, because God says, I'm not coming back with Yosha, which would be the only name that you could ever possibly ascribe to a Jesus. And you say, well, maybe it was Jesus, Ayusun was somehow a corruption of Yosha. But well, that is a huge stretch. And if it were so, somebody should have written about it in any one of these books, if you're supposed to believe that is so, and no one ever mentioned it. So guess what? It ain't so. But this says God's not returning with Yosha. He's not returning with somebody who would be noted as a high priest. He is not coming back with any of these loudmouth associates, of people of ill repute. He's not going to include anybody who was part of that office previously. But behold, God said, I myself will bring my co-worker, Dode, the branch, Dode. Powerful, isn't it? For those who are anticipating the second coming of Jesus, I just told you that the high priest, Yosha, as well as his compatriots, that, well, he was going to come with his co-worker, who is the shamak, the branch. And when he returns with the branch, that means he's returning with Dode. Now, how's that for a wondrous sign, especially if you are Yahudah or Yisrael? He's coming back with your guy, our guy, Dode, the former king, the returning king. Now, while it has become a fool's folly, should there still be some who remain in denial, with this statement, Yahweh has once again completely eliminated any possibility that the mystical misnomer, this fairy tale, Jesus, ever existed, or much less is returning. God has been abundantly clear, telling us that he himself, as Yahweh, will arrive and reconcile his relationship with his beloved Yisrael on Yom Kippurim, the day of reconciliation. And it's happening with Dode. Well, God has made his point. Like everything he reveals, the truth is so vastly different than what we have been beguiled into believing. When dealing with the death of one of the world's most debilitating myths, the second coming of Jesus, we have affirmation after confirmation that it's just not so. So here's a different prophet for yet another perspective on the same declaration. And this time it is not, if it's not already abundantly obvious to you, let's go back at it. For those who may have protested under their breath a moment ago, suggesting that the misnomer Jesus was also a branch, no reference to a Jesus being a branch, but many relative to Dode. So you may want to dine on this bouquet of divine metaphors here a moment longer. It says, woe. That's not a good thing. When God says woe, you better pay attention. Consider this warning and let it garner your undivided attention. To the shepherds, to those who tend to, care for, and feed, who shear the flock, who have led astray and destroyed, causing irreparable harm, abad, who have ruined by misleading, causing many to die, perishing such that they cease to exist, and whose actions have caused things of great value to be squandered, like souls, and have wasted them. We're talking about rabbis, pastors, and priests, the religious, who have led God's people and their people astray, because they have scattered the flock. They have chaotically displaced, attacking, dashing, and dispersing the flock from, God says, from my shepherd and from my nurturing, from my guidance, leadership, protection, and company, from my, which is to consider the purpose of ra'ah, pasturing, grazing, guiding, feeding, associating with, befriending, teaching, leading, and shepherding the flock of sheep. Prophetically declares Yahweh. So this is a statement in Yirmiah 23:1 that God is saying, I am upset with you, those who claim to be shepherds, whether they be political or religious leaders. I am upset with you for misleading my flock. God is not happy with them. It begins with the woe. So woe to all of those who are acting like shepherds, who have led astray and destroyed, causing irreparable damage because they have scattered the flock from my shepherding and nurturing. And if you're taking people away from the Torah, teaching and nurturing, to the New Testament blabber, you're doing this, or the Quran, or the Talmud. Any one of those things, you'd be guilty of violating what Yahweh is speaking of prophetically here. So consequently, this is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, has to say in opposition to those acting as shepherds, those leading, feeding, and shearing my people. You yourselves have led astray, pushed away, and scattered my flock, and you have consistently driven them away by continually seducing them. Therefore, you have not been concerned about them. So behold, I myself will hold you accountable, and I will reckon this against you because of the willful misconduct and unethical nature of your foolish deeds and wanton abuses, prophetically declares Yahweh. Jeremiah 23:2. And with that, if you are a political leader, a military leader, or a religious leader, you are in serious, serious trouble. First of all, do you ever see the name Yahweh in the Christian New Testament? If you don't find Yahweh's name, whoever is writing does not speak for God. Every time someone speaks for God, they use Yahweh's name. Invariably. All the time, 100% of the time, without exception. Which means that Yahweh did not inspire and does not have anything to do with the Babylonian Talmud that is the basis of Judaism. Never mentioned in the Talmud. God had nothing to do with the Christian New Testament. God had nothing to do with the Quran. His name is Yahweh. If you don't know his name, you do not know him. If you don't speak in his name, you're not speaking for him. So consequently, this is what Yahweh, the God of Israel needs to be understood. It is a compound of individuals who Sarah strive and contend with, or engage and endure with. God has to say. How would you read what God has to say? Yahweh spoke through his prophets in the Torah, Nabi, Wamizmor. In opposition to those acting as shepherds, God is opposed to politics and to religion. And so somebody who is acting as if they were a shepherd and is saying things that are contrary to what God revealed in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, they are guilty of this, and God is saying, I'm going to judge them accordingly. So folks like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, or Charlie Kirk while he was alive, who claimed to be leading, feeding God's people. He said, no, you've led them astray. You have pushed them away. You have scattered them. You have displaced them. You've attacked them. You've dashed them. And I don't appreciate what you've done to separate me from my flock. Because you have consistently driven them away by continually seducing them. You have compelled and enticed them, leading them astray. You have lured and drawn them away, preying upon them. You've exerted enormous pressure and thereby thrust them aside, exiling and banishing them. And you have made them outcasts, causing them to be cast down. In particular, God is condemning the rabbis for driving Jews away from Yahweh. There isn't 1 in a million Jews now that recognizes that Yahweh is God's name, and that Dod is his beloved son, the Messiah, and our Savior, as well as the returning King. And that is all the fault of the rabbis, because God said it as clearly as words allow, and they're the ones who wrote over and spoke over and shouted over Yahweh. God's going to hold everything they have done against them. Therefore, you have not been concerned about them. So, all these cleric types, oh, we're taking care of the people. We're doing this for the country. We're doing this for God. No, you're not. All you care about is yourselves. Therefore, you have not been concerned about them. So behold, I myself will hold you accountable, and I will reckon this against you. Pakad al atem. I will consider what you have done, and I will take it into account, and I will take inventory of this opposition, retaining a record regarding you and holding you, even summoning you to punish you as a result of this. God doesn't care if you are misled. Sorry, but your soul just simply ceases to exist at the end of your mortal life. No reward, no punishment. But if you are among those who mislead, as the societal influencers do, promoting politics and religion today, or the rabbis do in Israel, if you are one who misleads, God's going to hold you accountable, and there is going to be a consequence, and that consequence is Sheol. He says, I'm going to hold it against you because of the willful misconduct and unethical nature, the roah, the harmful effect, the displeasing and injurious result, this corrupting and perverting, which is evil and improper, of your foolish deeds and your wanton abuses. Prophetically declares Yahweh. Yirmiyah 23:2. Then God says, then I myself will obtain and gather. I will kabats. I will select, harvest, pick up, engage relationally, such that I can be with and assemble the remnant of my flock from all of the lands where I have temporarily scattered them, there by name. Before we go on, this has not yet happened. This happens to be a discussion of what is going to happen 8 years from now. God in Zechariah, which is the passage that we're reading now, Jeremiah 23. We just got out of Zechariah. And Zechariah, Yahweh says explicitly that he is going to have 4 chariots, and 3 of the 4 are going to be picking up people from around the world. And so this idea of God picking up his people from around the world and bringing them back to Jerusalem to benefit from the sacrifice of the Yada Yahowah is well established in God's testimony. So he himself, this is not a situation that has happened, because you might say, oh, well, they came back to the land in 1948. God didn't bring them back to the land. They were brought back to the land by as a result of what they had endured during the Holocaust, and when the League of Nations was replaced by the United Nations. This was an early order of business, 1948, the establishment of Israel. So that's how that happened. And when that happened, there wasn't a single Jew that was speaking on behalf of Yahweh that thanked Yahweh for bringing them back. No mention of Yahweh. So this is something that is future. It's going to happen 8 years from now, between the 23rd and the 24th of September of 2033. Then I myself will obtain and I will gather them. He's going to do so in those chariots that are spoken of in Zechariah. And I'm going to bring the remnant. At this point, 2 out of every 3 Jews will die over the next 8 years during this time of trouble. I'm going to bring the remnant, the rest, the remainder of the descendants, even the residue of what is left of my flock, from all of the lands where I have temporarily scattered them there by name, as Yahud, as Yisrael. But my desire is to return and to restore them at this time, upon their pasture, abode, and home. Yahweh is bringing this remnant back. They're going to be purged of their inadvertent guilt and religiosity. Those who have been misled will benefit from the sacrifice of the Yada Yahowah, the bloody red man of the earth, who is a productive bull, who was sacrificed on this occasion. But those who have been misleading, they will not go forward. They will not be brought back. Their souls will be disposed of. So it is God's desire to return and to restore the children of Israel at this time with this final remnant. And he is going to restore their pasture, their abode, and their home, because he's going to terraform the earth such that all of the pollution that has been has corrupted the earth through religious buildings, political buildings, military equipment and buildings, all is going to be gone. And all of those who are religious, political, and military, they're all going to be gone. And so the earth is going to be terraformed back into the conditions that existed in Eden, the ultimate pasture and abode. And they will be fruitful and flourish. This is from Torah. The means for this to occur is from the Adam of Torah. Every time God speaks of bringing this remnant of his people back, whether it is through the prophet Yeshua, whether it is in the Torah itself, for example, in Numbers 15, anytime God is speaking of this, he wants to speak of this productive bull. Par is bull. Para means that the bull is very productive. And that is how God is reconciling his people so that they are prepared. He's purging them of their inadvertent religiosity and politics at this point. So this remnant can witness Yahweh's return with his co-worker, Dode. And he has been explicit saying that he is returning with Dode. There should be, Christianity never should have gotten even one convert, because God is so expressive in saying he's going to do all of these things with Dode. Anyway, the person that is offered to make this happen is the Parah, this productive bull. And they will increase and become great, living long and abundant lives. Rabbah, those who are purged of their inadvertent religiosity and politics on Towrah, this would be the 24th of September in 2033, with Elia orchestrating the events as the master of ceremony, and Yahweh providing the upwelling of water and the flames that purge and dance to heaven. That is essentially the fulfillment of Numbers 19 and Numbers 5, if you're familiar with the story of the Adam of Parah, and then of the woman who was purged of her religiosity. This all occurs so that those who are part of the remnant of Yisrael are now able to enter the Garden of Eden, and as the earth has been transformed into this perfect state that begins on Sukkah. This is the 7th of October in 2033, and they will live long, abundant lives. Everybody that enters the millennial Sukkah will live, well, not everyone, but most everyone will live for 1,000 years, and many well beyond that as they choose to become covenant. You'll only die if you become wrong, if you choose to promote that which is untrue. If you go back to the religious mindset, you'll be done. But otherwise, you get to live a very long life. Jeremiah 23:3. Then it says, "Then I will establish and raise up for them over them those who serve as shepherds, so that they will do what is required to nurture, guide, and protect them, and they shall not be afraid ever again." I'm just so delighted that we're covering this material on Towrah, because this is a celebration of Towrah. On Towrah, the Parah, already mentioned in this text, is the one who purges the mortal remnant, already mentioned in this text, of Yisrael, that Yahweh has brought back home, already mentioned in this text, so that they can live long and wonderful lives in the conditions that were experienced in Eden. God has spoken of these lush pastures and a garden-like environment that's going to prevail at this time, and that at this point, these individuals, this remnant of Israel that is going into the millennial Shabbat to enjoy long lives, the only way that they're going to live long lives and to continue to be right about God is that they're going to need great shepherding. They're going to need to be nurtured and guided and protected. And that will be the job of the covenant family who was gleaned, harvested, if you will, on Shabuah and on Towrah. And so our role will be to shepherd these people, to guide them, to teach them, to nurture them, to protect them, and mostly to protect them from themselves so they don't, go off and do the kinds of things that cause man to be estranged from God. This is all a derivative of the events of Towrah as we celebrate Yahweh's return with his co-worker, his son, the Messiah and King, David, doing so at this time. It is a beautiful presentation of what God has in store for us and what we will achieve together as we celebrate this marvelous family reunion between Towrah, Kippurim, and Sukkah 8 years from now in 2033. And so it is really a delight to be able to bring this message to you on a day that we are celebrating Towrah, the 8th Towrah from this event, with 8 speaking of long life, of eternity. So I thank you for listening. I'm glad to bring you back to our ocean studio on this marvelous day. And you can see, for those that saw the glimpse of the rain shower, that deluge that shortened our previous program, that we're pretty drip dry here, and it doesn't take much for us to get back and going again. And I'm delighted that we were able to bring this marvelous program to you that speaks of Towrah on Towrah. So may you enjoy the rest of your day. May God bless.